The Met Museum holds one of the largest collections of art in the world. Over 490,000 objects are in its collection. But visit and you're seeing a fraction. Most of it is in storage. Only 15.3% is on display. The remaining 84.7% is locked away. Some have been stored for decades. This project asks a simple question: what determines which paintings are displayed? There's no published formula, but lots of discussion. Curators decide based on condition, background, experience, institutional history, and by committee. It is, in effect, a complex black box. That black box has consequences, inefficiency, and art that never gets seen. This project unlocks the box, testing whether display reflects curatorial practice and painting attributes. In order to examine this systematically, the project defines a set of hypotheses. Hypothesis 1, painting characteristics like subject or age are directly associated with display. Hypothesis 2, display rates are driven by curatorial policy and institutional practice over physical space. And Hypothesis 3, that patterns are not universal, even among comparable museums. In 2023, the Met published a digitized subset of its collection on GitHub. It covered the whole collection, from paintings to musical instruments. The starting point was downloading that dataset and filtering it to the over 9,000 objects classified as paintings. That became the data universe for this project. But the CSV has gaps. Dimensions are messy strings mixing imperial, metric, and notes. And subject tags are inconsistent. Display status reflects a snapshot. The CSV itself wasn't enough. So for each painting, the Met API was called. This improved measurements and subject tags. It also returned a live gallery number for each painting. If there's a gallery number, then it's on display. If there's a 0, it's in storage. That's where the target variable comes from. It's derived, not supplied. Not from the original CSV with gaps, but from a live call to the museum system. There were 31 features, most needing transform to reduce sparsity and improve usability. All methods were chosen to increase interpretability with predictive performance in a real-world context. SQL was used via SQLite for data exploration and Python for visualization. Before looking at models, the data tells its own story, visualized using Tableau. The strongest association with display status is department. Department is the strongest driver of display likelihood with a Kramer's V of 0.569. The numbers behind that are striking. European paintings with nearly 3,000 works displays 48.4% of its collection. The Robert Lehman collection, 40.4%. But Asian art, the largest department with 4,000 paintings, displays just 1.4%. So the largest painting group is almost invisible, with the least displayed tags dominated by Asian themes. Nationality has a similar pattern. Some countries are more likely for display than others. For example, Italian works at 53.6%, French at 43.2%, whilst American works display at just 3.5%. How a painting was acquired also shows an association with the likelihood of display. Gifted paintings display at 9%, purchased works at 13%, bequests at 29%, other relates to age. The older a painting, the less likely its acquisition process is known. The gap is lightly explained by obligations from the institution. Bequeathed works often come with conditions for display, whereas donated works carry much less specific display requirements. Chi-squared testing confirms this as a real signal, not noise, with a p-value effectively at 0. Two other findings are worth noting. Works the Met designates as highlights display at 55.2% against 13.9% for non-highlights. And public domain works display at 22.6% versus just 4.9% for works still under copyright. Nearly a five-fold difference, and probably to do with complications of dealing with works with rights issues. To test whether these patterns are specific issues to the Met, the analysis extended to the Louvre across nearly 11,000 paintings scraped from their collection records, similar to the Met's inventory. It's probably the closest thing that the Met has to a direct competitor, comparable in stature, and both rank amongst the world's most visited art museums, but they displayed 26.7% of their paintings compared to just 15.3% at the Met. The immediate question is, why such a difference? The original Kramer's V-value comparison seemed to suggest that acquisition type was a stronger predictor at the Louvre. Its raw Kramer's V-value came in at 0.398 against the Met's 0.257. Looking closer revealed a problem. Louvre's acquisition data contained 79 distinct French language categories, 27 of which had fewer than 10 paintings. These were recoded. That fragmentation was inflating the statistic artificially. When Louvre's acquisition categories were recoded into the same broad buckets used at the Met, Kramer's V-value dropped from 0.398 to 0.133. So the original relationship was driven by categorization noise and not by acquisition. Acquisition type is a weaker display predictor at the Louvre than at the Met. Once controlled, acquisition at the Louvre shows only a weak relationship with display likelihood. A natural explanation for the display rate gap is floor space. Louvre is larger, so maybe it's just got more wall space. However, the data doesn't support display rates being explained by size. The Met allocates 42.64 square meters per displayed painting, and Louvre allocates 25.49. The Met uses 67% more space per painting it displays, and it still shows proportionally fewer works. So physical capacity alone is not the constraint. Instead, curatorial policy and organizational decisions are. EDA reveals patterns but cannot evaluate new paintings or factor trade-offs. With only 15.3% on display, the dataset is highly imbalanced, so the model was evaluated using precision, recall, and F1 rather than accuracy alone. 5 models were explored: a decision tree, a logistic regression, a random forest, a tuned random forest optimized through grid search, and a gradient boosting classifier. The benchmark was 84.7%, the accuracy achieved by predicting every painting is in storage. A model that cannot improve on that offers no practical value. The tuned random forest was the winning model, with 90.7% accuracy. Precision of 70.9%, meaning roughly 2 in 3 paintings that it flags as display candidates genuinely are. Recall of 67%, meaning it catches 2/3 of paintings that belong on the wall. And an F1 score of 68.9 confirms a strong balance between precision and recall. On the hypotheses, analysis supports the view that display is driven by painting characteristics and policy rather than physical capacity. The patterns are consistent overall but vary in strength across museums. But despite limitations, the scale of the data allows consistent structural patterns to be identified. However, there are limitations. Findings are probabilistic, reflecting a snapshot, and missing factors like conservation. The model's features guiding predictions match the analysis, assessing department, nationality, public domain, artist attribution, age, and subject. Everything so far leads to this: a practical, simple tool that informs art handling decisions for individual paintings. Currently, there's no simple, accessible tool to predict whether a new acquisition will be displayed. This model changes that, but how? A painting arrives and is condition checked. Its details are logged. The data is run through the model and a display likelihood score is generated. High probability works get fast-tracked. And low probability works, like this contemporary painting, are flagged for storage. Works in the middle, like bequests, get reviewed. The model is not replacing human judgment. Instead, it's focusing it where it matters by improving the system. This project produced 3 outcomes: a live dataset from the Met's API, a cross-museum comparison showing curatorial policy rather than physical space drives display decisions, and a predictive model achieving 90.7% accuracy. Some assumptions were confirmed, others overturned, and that contrast between intuition and evidence is where the strongest insights emerged. The tools used throughout this project are standard. An ideal display-worthy Met painting is an older European oil, likely Italian, held in the European or Lehman collection, acquired by bequest, roughly 69 by 65 centimeters, around 300 years old, and long established in the collection. This project shows how deeper analysis of existing data, combined with data tools, can turn opaque processes into faster, better decisions for institutions and the people they serve. Thank you for your time.